Hey Jimmy, good morning. Thanks for joining me here today. How you doing?
I'm doing great, James. How are you today?
Doing well. So I have to start off. Jimmy St. Louis. That's a hell of a name. Tell me, like, is that your actual governmental name, or how'd you get the name? Give me some background here.
Yep, I was born with the name, so you know, we've done a little bit of background. We're not fanatics about it, but my understanding is it's French. It comes from uh, King Louis the Ninth, which is the only king who is also a saint. And fortunately, he was also one of the good kings that everyone loved. There was no beginning of a French Revolution with him, and so our understanding is it traces back to King Louis the Ninth, and then I guess our French ancestors made their way to French Canada and then down. So my father grew up in the Upper Peninsula of Wisconsin, and I'm in Florida, but I'd say that's as they say, the short Reader's Digest version of our family heritage.
You know a lot more background about your name than I do mine. So good job there. It has a ring to it. Jimmy St. Louis. I wasn't sure. I was like, is that his actual name? Because if so, that's awesome.
Thank you.
Um, Very cool. Well, I'm really interested in speaking with you here today. Obviously, you have very unique and vast background in the franchise world, and it's a part of business I've always been interested in. Before we kind of dive into the specifics of franchising and just the franchise industry, give me some background about the story of Jimmy. Like who are you, and how did you get to where you're at now?
Sure. Try to keep most of it pretty brief. So I was a college football player. I played at Auburn University. I also played basketball there. And after college, I was fortunate enough to make it around the NFL. So I played professional football with the Tennessee Titans. And during that time, my agent was living up in New York, and the guy who was training us for the combine was living in New York. So I moved up there prior and fell in love with the city, and I knew I wanted to move back. So while I was playing football, I was got my MBA and got a master's in finance. And after my short NFL career, made my way up there, worked at Deutsche Bank, and I was planning on spending 5 years there, but I actually ended up jumping ship. We were working on a consulting project for a family office out of Dallas, Texas, who was looking to diversify their portfolio primarily into healthcare. And I actually jumped ship to work with them on a new business and joined as this new business's COO. And we launched a nationwide network of minimally invasive spine surgery centers. But the reason this is relevant to what I am doing now is we married a unique procedure that was highly effective with a very unique business model. So part of my research at Deutsche Bank was looking at the market and seeing what's emerging. This is at the time that Google AdWords was just beginning. And so we actually were the first company in healthcare to market direct to consumer through Google AdWords.
Wow.
It was 13 years ago now. And because of that, because of this strong marketing machine we built out, we opted out of insurance. If you try to get in touch with a doctor, you get referred by another doctor, you're within a network. We stayed out of network, which allowed people open access to our facilities. But we charged cash, and then we would go and we would help fight for their reimbursement afterwards. But because of the marketing model we built out, we were able to attract people from all over the world. And fast forward 4 years after launch, we had close to 2,000 employees. We were north of 250 million a year in revenue, and we just kind of had a tiger by the tail. And it was just a really incredible first real job, if you will, aside
Sure.
from football and a little bit of time on Wall Street. So I left. I sold about 2 years before the majority investment took place. Or the majority buyers came in, and I started a healthcare consulting company where we kind of had a theme of get paid to watch the movie. So what we did was we put our marketing model into some other unique healthcare opportunities, and we found one that really stuck. So we ended up acquiring them, and we launched then a nationwide network of lung treatment centers utilizing a patient's own stem cells, if you will, to help heal their lungs. And had quite a bit of success with that. We ended up doing a merger with a small group out of the Mayo Clinic. And at that point in time, this kind of carries me to where I am in franchising. I had taken a little bit of time off and I was making a run at the Olympic rowing team. I had
Hmm.
never rowed before, but I did it through CrossFit and then entered this indoor rowing competition, this world indoor rowing competition, finished third, got an invite out to the Olympic Training Center. I spent a year and a half trying to make the Olympic rowing team. And that was out in California. And finished third in the Olympic trials and won a couple national medals. And it was really cool experience. But I was a little older than the rest of the guys, about 10 years older than the rest of the guys are in their early 20s. And so I was looking for what do I do next? And this is how I got into franchising. I was watching the Today Show and Al Roker did this impromptu visit into this, at the time, it wasn't a franchise, but a boutique fitness center called City Row. And I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, I could put some money in this. I'm moving back to Florida, and that would be a great place for these boutique fitness centers. I like the sport of rowing. I called their main office, got in touch actually with their managing partner. We met, and he said, I think you should consider maybe joining the parent company. I don't think that you'll enjoy being a facility operator of a couple franchises. And so I did. We ended up doing a small investment in his company, and I got into franchising and just started to learn as much as I could, join him as an operating partner. But I noticed this problem in franchising, which carries us into what I'm doing with franchise 1, 2, 3. So I'm happy to pause there before I go into the whole business model and why we did it. That's just a little bit about my background, I guess, the last 12
I,
years or so.
I think that's awesome. The only question I have kind of relating to your background to the early days to where you're at now, obviously a competitive athlete, a professional athlete, and how did that translate what you learned being a competitive athlete to the business world now and kind of what you're doing now?
Yeah, I think there's of course the traditional canned response of you're on a team and it's a winning environment and those things. I think that's all good. But I do think business are a lot like sports in the sense that
Mm-hmm.
you can look at it as a family or you can look at it as a unit. And I think it's nice to have that family feel and you care about one another. That's what people really mean when they say a family. But I really look at business like it's a team, and you want to put the best players on the field that can work cohesively together to accomplish a mission. And sports are just frankly, the most transparent way to assess if you have the right team on the field. The best team doesn't always win, but the best team that day that figures it out does win. And it doesn't matter how you look on paper, the scoreboard is the scoreboard. So I really like that about sports, and translating that over, it's really helped me understand the importance of the team environment, but also the importance of putting people in the right place. With a family, that is what you have. People, they all have their roles in a family. On a team, that team is interchangeable, and you can get the best players in the field that will help you accomplish the goal. That's the way I like to look at business. I think you can develop your team to work directly towards a mission, and you're able to orchestrate it from that perspective. That to me is really great. I also think there's the other side of things, which is the term coaching, I think should be redefined back to its traditional sense. And
Hmm.
coaching isn't just teaching people the technical skills. Coaching is caring about someone and having them always have your back, right? It's like the last play of the game. Just like you need a couple more hours to finish something that's very important to the company, you can trust that with the right teammates there, you will have someone that always has your back and they're working towards the greater good of the company.
Absolutely. I love that answer. It sounds like there's a lot of, I just heard a lot of leadership in that answer too. As a ton of sales professionals that listen to this, and me being heavy into the sales world and managing and developing sales teams, the biggest thing I've seen from top performing salespeople are they do have a competitive athletic background, and competitiveness comes into a big part of being successful in sales. But you kind of hit it on another level, which is what I see the best performing companies and teams do, is like just really it's not just competitiveness, it's also leadership and knowing how to put the right people in the right places to succeed. So, and just someone from a professional background like you, I was curious to your answer, and that's a good one too. I'm I want to dive more into the franchise model and why you find this so interesting. And one of the questions here is why consider franchising as a business model? So I'll just start there. And before I do that, I want to say we work with a ton of facility service companies, really commercial cleaning companies, and a lot of these are franchise models. And I have heard really, really big success stories in the franchise model, and I've also heard nightmare stories. So, and I'm sure we can break down why that might be. But let's just start there. Like, why franchise as a potential business model?
So, franchising, just like just being your own entrepreneur, they both have their pros and cons. And one thing that we see that's common in franchising that may not be common in an entrepreneur who loves a startup is franchising really, I think, allows you to truly follow your passion and then operate it on a day-to-day basis. Where as an entrepreneur, you're chasing your passion, you're chasing your dream, and that's what allows you to fight through all the stuff that a franchisee may not have to do, right? The back office stuff, the accounting, the legal, the paperwork. There's just a lot of stuff as a startup person that you don't have to do all on your own as a franchisee. And I think there's a pretty common saying in franchising, which is be in business for yourself, but not by yourself.
Hmm.
And I think that's what franchising provides. It gives people a blueprint to follow something that they're passionate about, but have a team and guidance around them that helps them to be successful. The difference is, although conceptually that's what franchising really is, there are good franchisors and there are bad franchisors. And there are franchisors who are disciplined and they understand the playbook and they make sure to re-emphasize that because they believe in what they built to give that playbook to a franchisee to help them be successful. And there are franchisors who offer no support. And you sign up and you get a logo and a website and a phone call once a quarter if you're lucky, and you're kind of on your own. And I think that is a big reason why franchisees are not successful. Sometimes they don't get what they're signing up for. On the franchisor side, and I'm excited to go into this, there's a whole slew
Yeah.
of reasons that lead to success and challenges within growing your business as a franchisor as well.
Yeah, I do want to talk about the franchisor side, but real fast on more the franchisee side, because I know that there's people that listen to this show that have purchased a franchise or might be considering purchasing a franchise just because there's a ton of sales entrepreneurs that listen here. What would you say are some signs to look for if you are considering, let's say, a cleaning franchise? Or I used to work big in the crime scene cleanup realm, and there was a ton of franchises in that realm, believe it or not. What are some things if you're considering getting into the franchise world and you might be looking at investing in a franchise that you should look for, and what might be some red flags?
Sure. So on our platform, we have this global marketplace to buy and sell franchises, and because of that, we're able to have a lot of data. And so we wrote a book on this, and I think the important thing is to go through a sequence of activities that allows you to really narrow down to what may be the best fit for you, without any preconceived ideas about where you want to put your
Hmm.
money. I think the majority of people go into franchising where they have picked something they want to put some money into and they call and they try to learn all about it. But it's that salesperson's job to sell you on the concept as well. And so we believe that you should really first identify or research all of the different opportunities out there before you really identify and start to narrow it down. So on our platform, the first thing you do is you go through your non-negotiables, right? So that's where do you need to be located? What's your minimum and maximum investment? And what are the top 5 industries that you're interested in? So it kind of takes you from typically about 4,000 opportunities down to, say, a couple hundred. And then once you
Sure.
have those couple hundred and you have your non-negotiables, now that's your framework to begin to work with. Then you go into some other types of criteria, right? Like, are you more of an innovator and you want to have more say in the larger operation, or do you want someone to hand you a blueprint? What type of revenues are you looking for? As you dig into this? Are you looking for a small business loan? Just a number, what type of cash flow? Are you looking for this to be owner operated versus hire someone to run it? Though that criteria allows you really to get it down pretty quickly down to anywhere from 10 to 25 different opportunities. Then what we do on our platform is you can line all those up next to each other. You can just start to compare the KPIs. And this, I think, is what starts to answer your question. So within that, there's, of course, what's called the franchise disclosure document. There's three things that we really want people to look at the start. There's the item 7, the 19, and the franchisee list. The item 7 is going to allow you to understand how much it costs to open and where that money gets deployed towards. The item 19 is going to allow you to understand ballpark range, what you can expect revenues to be, what you can expect profits to be. And then the franchisee list, that's your list to start to call, start to call and ask, did you get the support you're looking for? Have your expectations been met? If you can invest in another one of these, would you do it? Would you recommend this to a friend or family member? Do you like the product, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? And we have a whole workbook to support this. Those are the things that you should look at preliminarily. And then when you think you're ready and you've narrowed it down to say 3 to 5 options, then you should start to get into the legalese. You should start to understand, are there lawsuits? Are the franchisees actually happy? You get into some of the nitty gritty, the understanding about, okay, if I put my money in this, where will the surprises be? And how do you avoid those surprises? So we think that kind of takes you from concept to the non-negotiables to start to dig into the nitty gritty. And then after that, that's where you start to go into, say, your top 3. You start to do budgeting and planning, operational plans. You are calling the executives within the franchisor system, and you're starting to really dive deep into your top 3 choices before you go through the next step to narrow it down to your final selection.
So it sounds like really just start broad, narrow down, and then you're just doing your due diligence at that point. I'm curious from a franchisor perspective. I'm not sure if there's any franchisors that listen to this, but I know some personally. How do you kind of pick a good franchisee? It's not just about the sale, I'm assuming, but like how do you know like this person actually will be successful within our model?
So we've seen a number of different ways this takes place. I think the good sound franchisors are going to look at fit. So they're going to know what type of operator is going to work well within their business. So they should look at their business background, the managerial experience, possibly their investment experience. I know they do look at things like credit score and those other things to help get them pre-qualified. We also believe that, and what we've seen is a number of franchisors will use personality tests. So they've been good enough to identify what is that perfect operator for their business. And they'll actually put them through a personality test. There's a precision test. There's the Myers-Briggs test. There's a number of different ones that different groups use. That allows them to say, okay, this is the right fit. On top of that, it increases the likelihood of success, because if that person isn't a perfect fit, it doesn't mean they get declined. They may say, okay, now here's the team you need to put around yourself. You may lack operational discipline in terms of, say, marketing controls because of what we see
Mm-hmm.
here. So let's be sure that this person you hire who's at the front desk is really good at that. I think there's a number of different ways to do that. And then, so I think, again, a lot of them have different tools that they're utilizing to see if they're the right fit. I think, generally speaking, the best way for a franchisor to really assess the right fit is to approach it just like an interview. Would you be willing to hire them to run and operate one of your units? And would they be a good facility operator?
Absolutely. Don't overcomplicate the process and just have an interview process in place. And then, of course, the background has to check out. I would also maybe say, from a franchisee's perspective, too, if the franchisor is doing that much due diligence on you, that might be a good thing, that they're just not looking to sign up anyone and everyone.
Yeah.
Talk to me about franchise 123. Obviously, you have so much knowledge that now there's franchise 123. Tell me exactly about franchise 123, what it is, and really what you guys do.
Sure. So franchise 123, simply put, is Zillow for franchising. And the best way to describe this is if you look back and you move to a new city, say 15 years ago, and you wanted to buy a house, you call a real estate agent, they meet you, and they would have asked you some questions. They're going to hand you 5 to 15 houses to go look at. And you might have a likelihood of success, but you're living within that little tiny pool. Zillow was formed as now the largest consortium of real estate information for residents, and now you have the power in your hands. So when you typically go to see an agent now, you selected the ones that you want to go see, and you've done it based upon your criteria. We've created that for franchising. The reason we created that for franchising was because in franchise sales, there's a serious problem that needs to be resolved. The experience as a buyer is not good. It's often full of misaligned interests. It's complicated, it's cumbersome, and it's full of distrust because you don't know if you're being sold something that you may not be a good fit for. There's a problem on the franchisor side because the franchisor, especially emerging franchisors, they typically don't have the skill set to go and sell units. So what they do is they engage in two different areas. They engage with franchise portals where they'll put their profile up on this portal, and then that portal gets paid often about $50 per lead that they direct over to their salespeople.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is, as a researcher, as a prospective franchisee, you haven't really done much research. So you're very, very top of the funnel. And you may go in there and click on 5 to 10 different groups, not knowing much about them, not realizing you're about to get bombarded with a bunch of phone calls. And so what do? You don't answer the phone. And so now you have this very unqualified lead that a franchisor has paid $50 for, that they only reach on average 1 in 25 of them. And so that, and then that 1 out of 25 is highly unqualified. So it's a very long process. It's the typical acquisition cost of a franchisee, and that is thousands and thousands of dollars. So that's problem one. Problem two is the way the current broker network works is just like I described. It used to be 15 years ago in real estate. You call a broker, you say, I'd like to get into franchising. They do a long, extensive personality test. They have 15 companies within their little pool, and they say, I found the perfect fit for you. I'm going to send your name over to this company, and they're going to call you, and they're going to start to run you down the rabbit hole. Now, problem one is that may not be the perfect fit. Problem two is the broker takes anywhere from a 50 to 75% commission on that franchise fee to put in their pocket. Now, as a well-established franchisor, you don't rely on those franchise fees for your operation. So that could possibly be a good option. The interesting thing is, of course, as you're more well-established, you've already built out your own sales competencies, you don't need a broker. The companies that need brokers are the emerging franchisors. So when they rely on a broker, now the amount of capital they need to be successful significantly goes up, because before they're getting their revenue from their royalties, they rely on that franchise fee to help them be successful. If more than half that franchise fee goes into the pocket of a broker, it just becomes a very expensive model. And on top of that, they may be getting paired up with people that may not be a good fit for them. So there's a problem in the industry. I don't think that those problems were ever created with ill or malicious intent. I think that they work, but I think it's just time to bring franchise sales into into what we would call franchise sales 2.0, right? It's just time to move into a new era here. So franchise 123 was created to allow franchisors to go on. They can manage their whole profile. It's a very robust system. They can upload all their videos, their presentations. We've got an AI model where we can build out presentations for you through scripts. They can build out microsites in a matter of minutes. They can build out the company profile in a matter of minutes. And now we've provided to them the most robust infrastructure to sell their franchises. We even have a CRM model in there. We have a number of different support tools they can use to just help them run and operate 100% of their sales that they need. And then on the franchisee side, you have an account, so you can operate at your leisure. You can go in and you can research, you can click, you can engage directly with the franchisor, you can chat with them, you can see all the videos, and now you're able to really see, wow, there's many, many opportunities out there. Now, the model is pretty simple. We are success based, so we're not getting paid $50 a lead. We're also not taking huge commissions. We're taking 10 to 20% commissions, and we're taking on all the risk. So the current model is, aside from the franchisor paying $1,000 a year just to be present on there, so we can host their site and do all those things, they only pay when they close a deal.
Hmm.
So now the franchisors love it because, one, they're paying less. They're not putting anything at risk except for their initial membership fee. And franchisees love it because they're not getting bombarded with phone calls until they're ready. When they click begin today
Absolutely.
and ready, it works. So we're having quite a bit of success. We've got about 75,000 users on there. On average, they're researching 4 or 5 different companies, and it's beginning to work.
That's awesome. I love the fact that you saw this problem and not only made a model around it, but made a software model around it, and basically just play connector. It sounds like, and I think that's one of the best things we talk on this show a lot. Just the value of being a connector, being the one in the middle of a deal, and how that can be so beneficial as a business model. And then you guys have done it to in the franchise market, which is great. Jimmy, I really appreciate your time here today, man. I have a few last questions for you. And I'm so intrigued by the franchise model because it's something that's available and there for everyone to get into if you really want to. And then us working specifically in the commercial cleaning space, we see a lot of it. What Two questions for you. The first one is going to be more of a entrepreneurial potential franchisor. Let's say you are a business. Doesn't matter the field. Maybe it does. You tell me. How do you know, like, what's the process of even being like, you know what, I want to franchise this versus being multi-location? Like, what is, I'm trying to think of the right question, but like, what's a good way to know, like, you have a great business model to maybe turn that into a franchise and then that would make you a franchisor?
Sure. So it's important to also note that as a franchisor, it doesn't stop you from opening up corporate owned locations, right?
Hmm.
So franchising just gives you the option to allow other people to go and run and operate. It allows you to just expand faster. It also protects your business, right? So one thing that's interesting when you see like a trading multiple in a franchisor system who sells their business, it often trades higher because what you have now is you've got hundreds of business owners fighting for their financial future and for their life. And in turn, they're protecting yours. And that's really a beauty of franchising, right? You get the chance to work with incredible operators, people who are expanding your brand, and people who are out there growing their own net worth and chasing their own ambitions. So that's the beauty of it. I think if you believe that your model is sustainable, is replicable, and you can create a system that is easy to follow, that's the ones that are the best fits for franchising. I don't think it's the ones that have kind of arbitrary loose operations and aren't necessarily sure what makes them unique or what makes one location consistent to another. If you have the ability to create a consistent operation with a 1, 2, 3 playbook that you can hand over and you can give people a blueprint for success, you'll likely have the chance to have a pretty good franchise on your hands.
What are some of the I'm just curious. I know I said I had two questions. I actually now have two questions, so I really had three. What are some of the most unique franchise business models you've seen? Maybe they're on franchise one, two, three, but you're like, what? That's a franchise? Do any come to mind?
It's interesting as the market changes as well. I never thought that you could see tech companies
Hmm.
begin to franchise their model, but you're seeing that largely because their consumer base may be uh, geographically targeted, and so you're seeing these software companies who are selling territories, and they're essentially selling sales territories. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Um, a great just emerging model in franchising in general is anything that has a membership base. So, for example, in-home services, you've got companies that are popping up where it's a $10,000 cost of entry, and you get a van that's leased, and they give you a blueprint to go and sell in-home service memberships, right? So now there's these companies they'll come in once a month, they'll check your light bulbs, they'll change your air filters, they'll do an inspection, they'll look at your landscaping. They make the money off of upselling though. Then they're in your home and they're saying you need to do this, 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 and this. Those businesses are super successful because people are working from home now. and people want their home to look great. They want their offices to look nice. They want their home to be pristine and to have a good environment to, to be successful in themselves. So we're seeing those are pretty interesting ones as well.
No, I think that's awesome, and that's again where, like, as an entrepreneur myself, where my mind goes is there's so many different avenues you can get into that you can consider starting. I love that. All right, so the last question for you here is, if you were to give any advice to, like, young entrepreneur wanting to get into franchising, maybe they want to franchise their model. What are some good resources? I know that you have a guide out there, and obviously Franchise 123 is a great platform. But what would your advice be, and maybe what are some resources for anyone just wanting to learn more about the franchise world?
I think it's pretty common to go and start to research to see where you can make the most money. But I wouldn't look at it that way. Largely because if you want to go into a business that you're passionate about, there's going to be some challenges here and there, and you're going to want to have the grit and the wherewithal to believe in the vision to move forward. And the great thing about franchising is don't focus on necessarily the unit economics as the main factor, because if you're successful, you can open up two, three, four, five of these things. I think
Yeah.
that's something important to remember in franchising. So as a young entrepreneur, of course, there's the traditional advice of making sure you're finding what you're passionate about first. I think on top of that, if you're interested in franchising and you're a young entrepreneur, don't limit yourself in terms of understanding how much money you can make off of one unit. I would consider even do something with friends or family to try to lock down the option for a couple of units. As an
Mm,
entrepreneur, if you truly are an entrepreneur at heart, you're not going to want to run just a unit.
yes.
You are going to want to run multiple, most likely as a young entrepreneur. If you're a little bit more seasoned and you have built a little nest egg and you just don't want to sit in corporate America anymore, owning one unit is great. You come and buy yourself a job, you get a good steady income, and life is good from that perspective. But for the younger entrepreneurs, I would just say, be open-minded and think bigger than opening up a single unit.
I love it. I think that's great advice. Jimmy, where can people find you if they want to learn more? Everything. We'll obviously link your website, your LinkedIn, any playbooks in the show notes. But just kind of, if someone's made it this far in the show, where can people find you?
Sure. So on Amazon, our book is for sale on there. Your Comprehensive Guide to Franchise Success. It's a pretty detailed workbook. We're having a lot of success with it. People are happy with it. It'll be in Barnes and Noble in a couple months as well. On top of that, then the tool is www.franchise123.com. You can go on, create a free account, and start to look around, and you'll have access to more information in one place than you can find anywhere else in the world. We're really proud of it, and I think it's a useful tool for hundreds of thousands of people right now.
I do too. I'm actually going to go sign up myself, like, right after this. So, Jimmy, St. Louis, man, thank you very much for joining us. And you know what? Maybe we'll have future conversations on this topic once the show goes live. So, thank you, man.
Great. Thanks a lot for the time. I appreciate it.